Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar this afternoon on preparing for and recording a careers impact internal leadership review. Always a bit of a mouthful, that one as a title. So yeah, thank you for joining us today and bearing with us just for a few moments while we waited for some of the remaining registered participants to join us. Just to let everybody know from the start that today's session is being recorded. So if there's anybody that has registered for today's webinar that hasn't been able to make it, then they still will, and you will also get a copy of the recording in the post-session comms. So we'll make a start. So I will introduce myself. My name is Peter McKinney. I am a Compass Plus trainer for CEC, and I lead on our virtual delivery program. I also assist with the face-to-face delivery of our sessions as well. And some of you may well, who's on the call today, have seen me at some events. Joining me today, I have Tamid from our customer service team. Tamid, would you like to just jump on and say hello?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tamil. I'm a part of the customer service team at CEC. If you guys have any questions regarding today's session, please do leave it in the Q&A down below, and I'll be more than happy to help. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Tamid. So yeah, just to reiterate there, as I go through the slide deck and then also the demo today, if you do have any questions, if there's any queries, any concerns, anything you're not sure about, please drop them in the chat and the Q&A, and Tamid will work his way through them as I'm doing the delivery. So looking at a few of today's learning objectives. So these are the things that we really want you to be able to go away with as almost a call to action to be able to try and put into practice at the end of today's session. So we want you to understand the value and the purpose of the internal leadership review, really why you are doing it, what the intent is, and what we hope that as taking part in one, you will get out of it as well. It really, really is such a self-fulfilling exercise and task that it's really, really important to take part in. Secondly, we want to show you how you can prepare for the internal leadership review. So in terms of carrying out a leadership review at your own school or your institution, what you need to do in preparation for that, just to make sure that you've got the right people involved and that things go as well as they possibly can be. It's an exercise that definitely needs time and attention, focusing on it so that you get the most from it in the long run. Then we want you to understand how to record your responses into the product. So similar to a Compass evaluation, the internal leadership review is also recorded in a similar way, and that is within Compass Plus and Compass itself. So really important that we show you how, I'm going to say simple, with a little bit of trepidation there, but it is quite straightforward in the way that you can input that information into the product. And then as a result of that, the last point here about understanding how to action plan and maximize the value of the internal leadership review from the information that you put into the product. Compass Plus will then provide you with some action plans, some areas of development, and it will allow you to then focus in on 2 or 3 of these and then start to create an action plan and a strategic plan for moving forward in order to address those issues and sort of make the most of the review that's just being carried out. So they are our learning objectives for today, everyone. Okay, so I'm just going to turn my camera off so that I can see the full screen. So just to kick off here with some information and an update around the latest statutory guidance. So the guidance that came out a week ago, 15th, yeah, a week ago today. Obviously indications around lots of areas of Compass Plus within the new statutory guidance, one of which is the Careers Impact Internal Leadership Review. And it's sort of an acknowledgement towards the importance of this and taking part in one of the internal leadership reviews. So if you haven't already seen it, just a quick snapshot there that it says that it sets out clearly defined standards on what good careers leadership looks like, which is really important. And it's directly linked to the wider school and college improvement. So I will be able to demonstrate today through my demo where the action plan or the action areas from within the internal leadership review, how they can be then sort of integrated into the school improvement plan and how they should be as well. So like it says there from the statutory guidance, it's a really important piece of the product that allows you to understand what good careers leadership looks like and how you can then progress in sort of that maturity to achieve that as well. Okay, so just now looking at the Careers Impact Internal Leadership Review. So it's a review which is a new approach to driving impact across careers education. So the overarching ambition for the system is that it allows us and you to standardize continuous improvement and provide that quality assurance of careers practice. So allowing you to really understand what good quality careers leadership looks like, and then trying to sort of standardize that language and standardize that approach across the system. And obviously, when we say system, all schools. So looking at the internal leadership review as a whole here. So the impact system, what it aims to do is it aims to provide assurance of quality careers provision. It also aims to improve careers provision across the country, and it also aims to elevate the status of careers leadership. Kind of referring back to that first slide, and this is all about that standardization of our approach and standardization of our sort of terminology as well. And what we can see here, the internal leadership review, it's based around the careers impact maturity model, which you can see from this diagram here, sort of underpins and wraps around everything. So the model itself essentially is a series of statements which provides a shared language of how careers can be positioned as a driver for your school improvement. So it's intended to be done internally as a reflection piece by your school. So you'll notice that we've got sort of two segments in the middle there, one in orange, which is the set, or red, which is the second part of the system, and it's the peer-to-peer review. So you might have heard different hubs talk about these, but that's potentially a little bit further down the line, and possibly an avenue that some people have not sort of conducted yet, and started to collaborate with other schools. But for today, we're just going to stick with that blue circle there, which is the internal leadership review. Okay, so a nice slide here to look at the whys really. So what are the benefits of you and others within your school and institution carrying out the internal leadership review? So if we start from the top there, looking to engage leaders. So by carrying out the internal leadership review, it will hopefully unlock leaders' engagement and sort of support their wider understanding of careers. That's done through the process of reflection and discussion around the strategic careers leadership. So really bringing on board all of those different people involved in careers within your institutions and schools, and allowing them to sort of have a reflection and have a discussion around what they feel sort of strategic careers leadership looks like. Secondly, there, celebrate success. Now, this probably doesn't happen anywhere near enough, but from carrying out the review, it really does allow you the opportunity to reflect on the strengths of your careers provision. And this is probably where most schools are a little bit harsh on themselves. They probably don't give themselves the reward and recognition that they deserve for all of that hard work that they put in to make sure that every one of your learners has their needs certainly focused on and met. So celebrating your success. So part of the feedback from the information that you put into the product is it allows you to focus on your areas of strength. So knowing what you're good at would be certainly something that I would be shouting from the rooftops about. That could go on your website. You could share that information with parents, carers, other teachers that are involved within careers in your institution, and just letting them know where you are making an impact. The next one there, sustained quality and impact. So embedding impact evaluation of careers into your whole institution quality assurance mechanisms. So it makes sure that it's not just a bolt-on to the domain of just the careers leader. So you can then develop the whole institution approach to careers and that wider distributed leadership. Embedding best practice, so understanding what best practice actually looks like. So with the maturity model that we will look at today, it allows you to ascertain what good quality leadership careers leadership looks like, and how you can then sort of try to strive towards achieving that. And by understanding what good quality practice looks like, it allows you then to try and embed that further into your school and into your institution. And then the last one there, aligning with your priorities. So again, linking into those sort of development areas that come back from the from the actual leadership review, when you get those points from Compass Plus, it allows you to then align that with your whole institution priorities and sort of action plans for moving forward within your school. So hopefully the areas that within your school action plan line up with the areas of development within the internal leadership review. So some real benefits there to carrying out the review within your schools and your institutions. Okay, so just touching back again now, it might look the same slide as before, but it's not. It has a little bit more information. So this is just about information to explain what the maturity model is all about. So the model itself is going to be split into 6 themes. Each of the themes is broken down into multiple components, and they then combine to encapsulate what careers leadership is in its entirety. Excuse me, leaving nothing to chance. The language of the benchmarks is embedded into the leadership review in a way so that it's future proofed as well. And then the description of quality within each of the components, as you look at it, it improves from left to right. So on the continuum that we will look at, that then increases in maturity from left to right as we look at it. So everything within the model itself as well starts with the impact system. And what the impact system does here is it unpacks what good careers leadership looks like and gives you that shared language and definition of not what only good careers leadership looks like, but also what quality practice looks like too. It's important as well, I think, everyone, just to note at this point that this model does not define the actual role of a careers leader. So if we've got careers leaders on the session today, it does not define your role. It's certainly it's something that is much bigger than that, and it should articulate what careers leadership is in its whole, and sort of towards that whole school improvement as well, but certainly not what the careers leader's role is. And then I think lastly, it's more about acknowledging that you are on a journey and that nobody will be in the sort of the likely to reach full maturity. Certainly when you are engaging with the internal leadership review for the first time. And it's important to note that when we do see the maturity model, that you can move from left to right, and just acknowledging the fact that that may happen, and then sort of what we do to have things in place to mitigate against that. Okay, so just looking at our maturity model here, so we can see this is an example. So this is theme 1 of 6, and it's just to show you really that you've got our key sort of questions down that left hand side that we are mapping against or scoring against, and then as a result, going from left to right, we can see sort of in terms of increasing in maturity, how those statements become more meaty, for want of a better word. And what we'll also notice is, when we do look at it again, is that as you go from left to right, so we've got sort of least mature here to most mature at the right, is that the language and the terminology changes, and it becomes more embedded into school, almost part of the school DNA, that everybody is aware of different areas within the themes, and that everybody understands what part they have to play within that as well. And as the more people involved in careers understand their role and their requirements, that is where you would then start to move from sort of number 1 all the way through to number 4. So this is just a quick sort of snapshot of the maturity model and what it looks like, and then how it is then sort of worded when you do carry out the internal leadership review. Okay, so just a quick look at the different themes here. So these are the 6 themes, and they are at the heart of all of this work. So they allow us and you to standardize the interpretation of the Gatsby benchmarks. And you'll notice there that each of the benchmarks are mapped against each of the themes, and it allows you to understand the value of the benchmarks in relation to school improvement as well. So we can see where each of the different themes maps to each of the different benchmarks, and what that sort of wording and terminology looks like as well. So within sort of themes 1 and 2, we feel that these are what we call the big hitters. In that, if we strive to achieve high scores and high levels of maturity in themes 1 and 2, that hopefully these are the areas with the highest leverage and the highest action points. We call them the keystones, like you see in that analogy underneath in the bottom right corner there. that if we achieve these, that all hopefully all of the other areas within the themes and the benchmarks, they would hopefully start to fall into place. So having that sort of stable careers program in place, addressing and meeting the needs of all of our learners through the multiple different facets, that we should then be able to strive towards achieving sort of full maturity or being very mature within our scores on the maturity model. So themes 1 and 2 we call the cornerstones, and they are certainly the key components or the big hitters. Okay, so now just looking at the language on the columns now. So on the maturity model, I just showed you a couple of slides previous, where we're going from left to right. We can see how the descriptors progress from left to right. We can see that the increase, the indicators increase in terms of maturity. So you may, and this is a really important part to note, you may experience movement along that continuum in both directions. Now that's to be expected, because you may have something in place one day or one week, and then it may not be in place the next. So that's to be expected. But the key, everyone, here is to be asking yourself or ourselves the question of how do you mitigate against that if or and it does actually happen, and what can you do or put in place to respond to that if the inevitable does actually happen as well. So what we might find is that in less mature schools and institutions, the provision could be great, but it's more likely to be sort of standalone activities, or sort of elements of happenstance, that type of thing. But as you move, and what we'll hopefully notice here, but as you move towards the right, you can see where the provision becomes more embedded, like I just mentioned earlier, as a whole school approach and response to sort of individual needs. So as we start to consider the needs of our learners and sort of the improvements that needed, then we will hopefully automatically move away along the continuum. And then what we would find is that in most mature careers, as in most mature colleges, the careers becomes part of the solution of tackling strategic priorities. So in the schools where we are achieving fours, then what we will hopefully find is that careers is actually fully embedded, and it is absolutely part of the solution when tackling strategic priorities. Okay, so this is the approach towards carrying out the internal leadership review. And we're just going to go through each one of these stages here. So firstly, we would, or you would, convene. And when we are convening, or when you are convening, it's all about having the relevant people, the right people involved in the internal leadership review, and having their say and their reflection. So it is absolutely not one person's job. It is not the job of just solely the careers leader, and certainly is something that should be involving, senior members of staff, certainly head teachers. I was at a conference, it was around Christmas time, where a head teacher got up to give a talk about the internal leadership review. Bearing in mind his career spanned over multiple years, he'd said the internal leadership review was the best piece of CPD that he'd ever done. It allowed him and his staff to sit down, really, for want of a better cliche, cogitate and digest, and then just understand really where they were in a true reflection piece on that maturity model and what work then still needed to be done. So bringing everybody together at the right time is certainly the key part of the convene. Now, in terms of the agree, this is where you want people to either want to do it as a group, an individual setting, a paired setting, trios, whatever it might be. But people should come together, and they should then start to form their opinion on their reflection of what good quality careers leadership looks like. And then when you come back together, you are then agreeing on that best fit. So as a group, where you feel you sit on that maturity model on all of the different themes, and then agree on one final score, so that can then be recorded into the product, which moves us nicely onto the record section. So once you have, let's say, a printout of the maturity model and you've got all of your scores annotated on your sheet, you would then just log into Compass Plus or Compass, which I will show you, and then you would input that data into the product. And then once it's in that product, it then provides you with areas of improvement, that type of thing. And then the final one is act. So once that information and data is in the product, then it's a case of you extracting that information in terms of your action points, and picking, 2, maybe 3 at a push action points for you to be able to go away and work on, not overstretching and not spreading yourself too thinly so that you don't actually create a real impact with any of the areas that you're focusing on. So making sure that we pick 2 or 3 areas that you can focus on. Again, they may well align with your whole school sort of improvement plan, and they may just line up lovely with that. But if not, then it's something that you can focus on as well, that as a group you want to try and work towards achieving that full maturity in. So it's about, coming together, that convening, really analyzing, everybody having a say, authenticating everybody's voice, agreeing on a final solution or a final score, recording that into the product, and then creating that action plan as a result. Okay, so I think this is the final slide just before I'm going to go into the demo. And these are just examples, everybody, of ways in which you may carry out the review in terms of bringing people together. So for example, number 1, we got the principal confirmation of CL view. So a careers leader completed the process and met with the principal or the head teacher. So you've got 2 people doing the review there. They would both come in with their own ideas of where they score on the maturity model. And then between the 2, they start that negotiation and start to agree where they feel they sit. You've got the SLT collaboration, so you've got bringing SLT members together. And again, that could be done in pairs, it could be done in trios, it could be done individually, but then doing that openly and honestly, come back together and then getting that whole sort of buy-in and sign-off from principal and SLT. You've got governor collaboration, you've got collaboration with SLT as well. So there's lots of different ways, and these are just suggestions on how you may want to carry out the internal leadership review. But one thing is absolutely for sure, it's not just one person's job to do this. It's not just the job of a careers leader to get the maturity model, print it out, annotate it, and go, right, there we go, that's where we sit. That is not the purpose. This is a reflection piece that should be done annually so that we can see where our areas or your areas of improvement are within your school, and the distributed leadership of careers within your school, and then allowing people to be elevated, to take control, take accountability of certain areas, and really step up to the plate as well to drive that whole school improvement forwards. So these are just a couple of suggestions, and again, these are also in product, they're in Compass and in Compass Plus, and I'll show you where you can find those just in a moment. Okay, so seamlessly that leads us straight into the demo, and what I will do now is I will show you where you can go to get that preparatory information, what you then need to do with it prior to carrying out the internal leadership review. And then once you've started to be ready to input that information into the product, what you would then do as well. So hopefully everybody that is on the session today is familiar with this page here. So this, when you get logged on, this is your dashboard or landing page when you get onto your Compass Plus account. And on our left-hand side here on the navigation bar, what we're interested in today is in evaluations. We've got our Compass evaluation, which is your normal termly evaluation on your careers provision, your activities. And underneath here, we've got our internal leadership review. So we're just going to select the internal leadership review. And what we can see to start with are these 3 sections. Okay, so the first one says preparing for the internal leadership review. 2 is using the maturity model. And 3 is the planning for improvement, which is where we would log that data once we've completed the review. So firstly, let's go into number 1. So if I just click into Access Essential Guidance, Compass Plus takes us to this page here. So the first part is just information and a confirmation of allowing you to understand what it is that you're doing, why you're undertaking the internal leadership review, within the actual process itself, what it will look to achieve for you, what it's going to help you do. So it's just making sure that you are in the right position at the right time to carry out the review. So that's a nice little bit of just preparatory reading there. The next part, it allows you again, just before we start to look at the model itself, to see and identify what the 6 themes are. So you'll have seen these on the slide deck earlier. So it allows you to understand what the themes are in terms of their headings, and then in terms of mapping it against the Gatsby benchmarks, where we feel they sit in relation to that. Scrolling a little bit further down, and then these hyperlinks here, these are, or this is the first place that we can gain access to the maturity model itself. So we've got the maturity model for schools and special schools, and then we've got the maturity model for FE. So if I just click into the maturity model for schools and special schools, what we've got here, everyone, these are the 6 themes. So we've got theme 1 there in red. If I just keep scrolling down, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So just to let everyone know, that's where they are. So when you are at the position where you're ready to carry out the internal leadership review, you would print this maturity model out however many times you need to, hand them out to the relevant stakeholders who are completing the internal leadership review, and then you would just get them to read the statement on the left, careers leadership and distributed leadership of careers, and then start to read what the descriptors or the continuum is saying in relation to sort of least mature here at the left hand side to most mature at the right hand side here. So you may read it as an individual and say there's a named careers leader. Yes, at our school we absolutely have a named careers leader, so we're definitely number 1. There is a named careers leader who's completed or is in the process of completing the appropriate careers leader training. Yes, absolutely. Our careers leaders got level 6 or they've got level 7. So they've definitely done that. And that they have sort of full-time responsibilities. So we're definitely 2. Leadership of careers includes training leader with line management at sea. Right. No, ours doesn't have that. So it's about understanding the terminology and the wording, and you can see where things become more embedded. It's, just one step after the other. So here we might say, right, we are 2, but then it also allows you to say, right, what do we need to have in place in order to achieve maturity level 3, and then so on to maturity level 4. So that's just an indicator of what the themes look like. So theme 2, we've got meeting the individual needs of our learners. So again, if we looked at 2.5, careers impact the learner perception. So this is all around future skills questionnaire. So if we looked at this, learner's perception of the careers readiness is considered to inform evaluation of careers provision. Yes, we roll out the future skills questionnaire. Great. So we're at least number 1. Learners' perception of career readiness is measured and analysed. Right, no, actually, you know what? I haven't done that yet. We haven't had time to sit down and look at that custom reporting, the summary reporting, the detailed report. So, we're at 1, but I know what it is that I need to do in order to achieve level 2. And again, when you start to look at this, it just highlights the areas that maybe in your in the offset you thought you may have been higher scoring, and it really is a great reflection piece, so that when you're sat down, certainly with senior leaders, that you can bring that to their attention. And absolutely, careers needs to be a whole shared responsibility, and it's about moving that forwards. And as long as you've got the buy-in from senior leaders, from head teachers, then that is a real benefit and purpose of the internal leadership review. So then moving a little bit further down, so we've looked at our maturity model there. Moving a little touch further down here. Now, these are suggested people as to who could take part within the review. Again, not an exhaustive list, everybody, but certainly just suggestions of who you may consider to take part in the internal leadership review. So certainly, I would advocate for head teachers, really senior members to be in there, possibly link governors. Again, they can be really great as that critical friend to hold people to account once decisions are made. Excuse me, you've got SLT, you've got the careers leader, you might have careers advisors, SENCOs, pastoral support, you name it. Anybody that is involved within careers, and as long as this is planned correctly, can have it in their calendar. So it can be a calendarized event so that everybody sits down and you've got, a good couple of hours to set aside and work towards this, because it really is, in terms of a what's the phrase I'm looking for? Speculate to accumulate. It's absolutely worth the time and effort that you put in to this for what you then get back out at the end of it as well. And how it can just really involve all the right people, open their eyes up to sometimes some of the great work that goes unnoticed. The review can really just unpick that and then show everybody where improvements can or maybe do need to be made. So that's the next section there within the information section. If we keep moving down, We then get to, and again, you'll have seen this within the case study part. These are just suggested routes as to how you might carry out the internal leadership review. So we've got, careers leader and maybe head teacher. You've got SLT. You've maybe got governors and the collaboration. So these are just the suggested ways in which you might carry out the internal leadership review, which were also just covered in the slide deck earlier. Just sort of reconfirmation on that. And then moving right to the bottom, and then again on this right-hand side here as well, these are then just all supportive links to be able to take you to any information and guidance that you may need if you're starting to carry out the internal leadership review, certainly for that first time, and you just want to make sure that you've got all the right people involved, all the right documentation ready for people to sort of look at and access. So these are then just links to be able to help you with that as well. Okay, so that is all housed within our first section. Now, the second section won't take very long at all, because if we'll notice here, I just clicked into that, and what it is, it's just another copy of the internal leadership review. So it's the maturity model in front of you here, all the different 6 themes, and you would then just print that out and then hand it out to the relevant people taking part in the review. Again, whether that's 1 between 2, 1 between 3, 1 each, whatever it might be, the importance is that people have access, whoever's taking part in the review has access to the maturity model, so that they can then understand the descriptors and where they are openly and honestly assessing careers leadership within your school and institution, where they're assessing it against that maturity model. The final part here, everyone, so number 3, this is where we input the information into the product. So we are ready, we've convened, we have agreed, we are now ready to input that information into the product. So we just click into the bar here. And again, this is very similar to how you would import your compass evaluation information as well. So prior to inputting the information into product, there's another just, make sure that you've read this, you know what you're doing, you've carried out the review correctly, etc. And again, just say before starting, have a little read of this essential guidance just to make sure that you've done everything correct. Once you're happy that you have, all we do is just click on record the review. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is, and again, this will look very similar to the compass evaluation where it asks you to sort of name your role within the school. This is just saying who took part in your review. So, okay, let's say we had our principal, we had the careers leader, we had our governor along as well. We definitely had our Senko, SLT pastoral, SLT personal development, whoever it might be, PHSE lead. You can see there's lots of options here, careers advisor, and that'll do. So we've had all of these different people involved in carrying out our review. So we just click save and continue, and here we go. We now see the 6 themes across the top, very similar to your compass evaluation where you would see your 8 different benchmark stages. We've got our 6 themes, and we just click save and continue, and now we are starting to complete the information. So now what the difference being here, everybody, and I'm just going to quickly nip back to the maturity model. So I'm just going to have that there, and then I'm going to go back into recording our review. I'm just going to put a couple of people in this time. I just wanted to be able to sort of flick backwards and forwards here. So what we will notice is here the information goes top to bottom. On the actual maturity model, it goes right to left. So, and it's just an IT setting. So when we are completing it on here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just literally top to bottom as opposed to left to right. So it's just really to let you know that you might be thinking, oh, that looks different to what I've actually printed out and what we filled in. It's just more for IT and having it fit on the screen correctly. Now, what we'll also notice here, though, is that we've got a 5th option. And the 5th option is not yet achieving any of the response options. So if we've looked at these here, and let's say for 1.1, we don't even have a careers leader. So we're not achieving any of these maturity, sort of any scores on the maturity model. So within this section here, we would then, maybe say, right, I'm not yet achieving that, but I know that I need to get a careers leader in place. So you can, if you feel that you do not achieve any of these, you can select that box at the bottom. Okay, so let's just say, no, we're going to go with this one. So we've got our careers leader and they've done their careers leader training. click save and continue, and then we're on to our next question. And what you might just notice here at the top, the toggle bar is just starting to move along. So if I do it with a few more questions, so again, you know, you've got your annotated maturity model in front of you, and all you are doing is transferring the information that you've got selected on that maturity model into here. And it's a really simple process, everyone. And again, you'll notice now you can see that little bar's moving along just nicely. Save and continue, and it just moves through the themes. Now, let's imagine there's an emergency at school and you're in the middle of completing your input for your careers leadership review, and you need to go away and attend the emergency. What Compass Plus, and again, similar to your Compass evaluations, allows you to do, it allows you to save the answers that you're up to. So, for example, we're up to 1.4. So let's say we had to log out and we had to go away, and then we came back, we logged back into our Compass Plus account or our Compass account, click into evaluations, into internal leadership review, and what we will find if we move down here a little bit is we have got our reviews housed here. So we've got the ones that we've already completed. So we've done those annually. And these are our ones that are in progress. So this is the latest one here at the top. If I just click resume, what Compass Plus will do, or Compass will do, is take us straight to the last question where we were inputting, and it allows you to then pick up straight from that point. So I'm back to 1.4. I can then just click save and continue. I'm at 1.5, and you just work your way through. Again, very, very similar to the Compass evaluation, where you can go away and come back and complete it at your own leisure when time allows. This is exactly the same. Okay, so let's imagine we've done that. Okay, so we've now got all of our information, our data into our product. And what we want to do now is we want to see what that all means. Now then, at the bottom here, just before we go in, so excuse me, the internal leadership review is something that is to be done annually. So it's a reflection piece, an annual reflection piece on your distributed careers leadership within your school. And as you do that each year, your information, your answers will be housed here. And what we can then do is look at the responses, and you'll be given the opportunity to sort of compare your previous answers to your most recent one. So if I go into our most recent internal leadership review. So if I just click on view responses, what we will see here, if I just scroll down, and again, this will probably look familiar to our dashboard page. And again, that is intentional, so you get that familiarity within the product. And what we can see here is these are the ways in which we have answered all of the questions within the maturity model and where we've scored ourselves. So whether we were response 1, response 2, or response 3 or 4, it now tells us where we as a group have come together and we've agreed on whatever response we are within the maturity model. So things that we can look at now within this page here. I'm just going to move everybody over to that side there. So in the highlight statement, so if I selected an option here, I've got one of two things. I can look at our priority action areas. So if I look at that, it gives us the areas where we have scored ourselves the lowest. Okay, so for example here, we're looking at 1.5 and 2.5. So governance and then learner perception, we've scored quite low. Others, we are then at response 2. Anything response 2 and below will be classed as priority area. Anything in response 3 or above, excuse me, would be our areas of strength. So this is where I was saying earlier, it's really nice to be able to identify where your strengths are and absolutely shout that from the rooftops. You know, get information like that on your school website. Let people know where you are doing things really well and that you're proud of that. Because if you don't, nobody else will. So it's really important that you do that. But looking at your areas of strength is absolutely a brilliant place to start. Similarly, this would be something that you would sit down and say, right, what areas do we want to focus on when we're creating an action plan? Any of these might line up with your whole school improvement plan. If they don't, then again, you might have them as sort of standalone action plans that you want to work on so that the next time you complete your review in a year, that, you know, hopefully 1.5, the governance, it's moved up to a 2. Or learner perception, yes, we do FSQ, and it's embedded into sort of our careers plans, and we analyze the results as well. Okay, so that is looking at our priority action areas. Another thing that we can do is we can compare our results to our previous review. So for example, if I want to look at where we were in our first internal leadership review, what we can see, and this is a great way to be able to demonstrate your improvement and where you were focused on certain areas and started to move in that in the right direction. We can look at 1.2, we were a 1 and we're now a 2. Again, 2.4. There's a lot of improvements there. 1.4, we've moved along really nicely as well. We're pretty much improving in all areas, if I'm being completely honest. So that's a really, really great way that we can then showcase this information to, SLT and to governors, to Ofsted even, to say, look, these are the improvements that we're making and we are absolutely moving in the right direction. Now, something else that you can do here is we can download this information. Sometimes it takes a little while. So just while the download is taking place, we've also got the option to be able to share this information. I'm just going to show you. So it's just downloaded now. Okay. So there we go. So this basically gives us a PDF version of that screen that we were just looking at. So it's great to be able to print that out. And then if you were going into a meeting, to be able to take that into a meeting and share that information with anybody that you want to. Similarly, if we wanted to share this information with people, we can do. So we would just copy that link. So Compass Plus is copying the link to our internal leadership review. You could then go into your emails and type in whoever email you want to share that information with. And the really good thing about this is that when they get access to that link, it's an interactive link. So it's not just a static screen that they would be looking at. When they get that link, they can do all of the things that you can do. You can look at your priority areas, you can look at your action areas, you can look at your developments, and they can do exactly the same as well. So it's not just a static image that they would get the interactive tool as well. So that's this first part here. So this is our visualization, looking at our action areas and our areas of strength. Moving down a little bit, we can now, if we want to, view all of our responses. So if I click on view responses, this now gives you a nice overview and a kind of an overarching view of how you've answered all of your questions. And this is as per your most recent internal leadership review. So we can see, right, okay, and what it does in sort of contrast to that visualization, we can also then see, right, so we're at 2, what does it take? What does 3 look like? What is it talking about? How much more is it embedded within the school priorities to achieve 3 and then to achieve 4? So it really does allow you the opportunity to see where your next steps need to be. Okay. So we can scroll down, we can look at all of the different answers to all of our different themes and how we have responded to them. So that's in our view responses, everybody. The next part, and this part is really, really important, I feel. Okay, I'm just going to sort of minimize that part. And this is the recommendations. So I've always found that it's always easy for somebody to say, oh, you need to improve in that area, you need to improve in that area, without actually giving any sort of helpful suggestions as to how you can do that. Where this is the case here. So let's say, for example, I'm just going to go back to this. Let's have a look at our 2 low scoring sections. So 1.5 and 2.5. So if we went to 1.5 here, okay, so this is support and challenge from governance. So let's click on the arrow there. So we scored ourselves 1, which basically we're kind of saying, yeah, you know what, we've got a governor or a link governor. However, I don't meet with them very often. They don't really know what their role is. I haven't fully explained what they need to do in terms of providing that support as well. So we've got that this is where we are. But underneath this here, these are sort of the suggestions now on how we can improve that relationship between ourselves and our governors. So we've got a link here, support for engaging governors. So this would take us to our academy and our resource directory, where we can click into here and we can provide supporting resource for our governors, for ourselves, so that they are fully aware of the role that they need to play within this particular review and how they can support us. And it will hopefully then allow us to move this forward the next time we complete the review. So this one's the ad hoc opportunities to meet and report to governors. So the next step may be, right, you know what, I'm going to have a calendarized plan of when we're going to meet with the governors and what we're going to discuss. That would then, if we had that in place for our next review, we would absolutely move to response two. So it's about showing that progress and that movement. And it's not about moving from response one to response four in one go. It's about sort of managing it in line with all of the other things that you have to do within your school and your action plans and priority plans, and making sure that it just fits in with that and that you are moving things forward. Now, again, that was 1.5. We also had 2.5, which was our learner perception. And again, this now links to future skills questionnaire. So you'll notice all of the resource and all of the support and information does that in here. And again, we can see that, learner perception is considered to inform careers provision. So yes, we roll out FSQ, but we don't analyze the data. It's not shared with senior leaders. So we'll definitely hear you. However, there are lots of hyperlinks to explore here around future skills questionnaire and what we can do, resources we can use, information we can share to try and further develop and embed that into our careers culture at our school or our institution. So it's really, really important just to note that all of the different areas that we scored ourselves on are in here, and all of them then provide that support and that recommendation as to how we can improve and try to move that forwards the next time we complete our internal leadership review. So those are all of the different areas within the product that we can focus on and that we can utilize when carrying out our reviews. So just coming back to this slide deck now, the next few slides are just a recap to sort of go back over what I've just covered. So the first one here is where we would find and record our internal leadership review. So I've showed you we're in section 3 and we click on the record function. And again, it says here, again, similar to our company's evaluations, takes around 30 minutes. Certainly the first time you're doing it, it would probably be that just to make sure that you're doing it correctly. But then as you complete more, that may improve over time. Then we've got all the areas where we would record that information. So all of the different themes, and like I showed before, as you work through them, that toggle moves from sort of left to right, showing that you are in progress of completing your reviews. Once you've done that, you are then presented with the opportunity to go in and look at your completed responses. And again, each one of those subsequent or previous ones will also be housed there. So the more that you do it, the more that you will be able to compare against previous year's answers. So this is where I showed you, and again, very representative of the dashboard page on your Compass Plus account and your but what you can then also do, which I showed you, you can download those visualizations to a PDF. We can also share them as well with people who we want to be able to show that data to. We can look at how we have answered all of our questions from a holistic point of view, and that overarching view of all of our answers. We can then, like I showed you at the end, look at those recommendations. And I feel this is such a really important part of the product, is to be able to see, right, great, this is where we are, but how do I get to response 3? How do I get to response 4? And there are always resources in there that can provide you with that support to be able to move that forwards as well. Looking at previous reviews, so that comparative element of previous reviews to your current one. And again, this is great to download to be able to demonstrate, look, we are making progress, and certainly we are actioning the things that we've said we are going to action. And then that's that. So this now, again, another sort of collection of how things should be done. So we're going to make sure that our institution has convened. So we'll come together and we have then agreed our responses. Once we've agreed the responses, we then record them into the product, which we mentioned there. It takes about 30 minutes to complete, and then we would act. So the act part is that action area within the product itself. It's letting you know the areas that you need to develop on, and then from that also possibly some of the resources, like it's got in there some of the training that you may need to take place in order to help you move forward with some of those action points. But those are in there as well, and it's again poignant to point out here that not to sort of look at all of your action areas, because that may be too much for you to do and take on board. And what you might find then is that you don't actually really commit to any of them, and you're just spreading yourself too thinly. So hopefully just acting on a couple will allow you to really, really create and see that impact. Okay, so now just bringing things to a little bit of a close, and pointing you in the direction of any extra training, any extra resource that you may need. So on the CEC website, there is a page that is directed to the internal leadership review, and it gives you help and support for any parts of the internal leadership review that you are wanting to find out about. So certainly if you're just engaging with it for the first time, things that you need to prepare in order to carry that out effectively. There are lots of articles within the website, and then also within the help center in product as well. Feeling that if the answers aren't in there that you need, then reaching out to your ECs and your hub support, they are always there to support with this. And certainly as you then move into the peer-to-peer side of it, which is another great exercise where you are then sharing best practice between, you know, 3 different schools. The ECs play a very big part in that, so they will certainly be able to give you advice and guidance around any problems and issues that you may have. So now just coming to a close around our fully funded training. So you've got the careers leader training here, which is designed and put together to help you as careers leaders be the best that you can be in your role. So it's accessed via the QR code there that's on this slide. And it really does just allow you to understand the requirements, the order in which you need to do things. Certainly if you're new into role, it can be quite overwhelming, the amount of things that a careers leader needs to do. But the landscape, and certainly, you know, even in light of just the new statutory guidance, the landscape of careers changes so very often that this type of training really does help keep you at the forefront of the recommendations, the requirements that you need in order to be a success in your role. So this is the careers leader training. Then we've also got our wider training offer, and this is accessed through the Careers and Enterprise Academy. Okay, so again, accessible through the QR code that's on the slide here. And it just takes you through multiple training options, multiple areas of a careers leader, and providing you training, resources, videos to help you just fully understand the different area or the different point that you're at within your careers leader career, and the type of training that you may need to undertake. So really, really valuable for careers leaders to take part in the training that is on offer there. This is something that you would certainly do at your own leisure as time allows, but something that we would recommend you do because it is really beneficial in terms of the guidance, the information, the knowledge that you can gain from it. Okay, so just before I bring Tamid back in to see if there are any outstanding questions, could I ask everyone that is still on the call or the session today to access the QR code for me? So, and this is our feedback form. Now, we really do take your feedback on board every time that you offer it. And we always look to see where the areas for improvement could be. We really do appreciate it when you do come on these sessions, and we know that your time is precious. So we want to make sure that when you do come on, everything's relevant and that you are sort of really finding a purpose and an impact from what we go through. So if there is anything that you were hoping might have been on the session today but wasn't, please leave us feedback for that so we can action it moving forward. On the flip side of that, if today's session's been really helpful, really informative, and it's really allowed you to understand, just how important and how impactful the internal leadership review can be, and what you might do now as your next steps, please leave that as well, because it's always nice to know where we are doing things correctly and creating that impact for you. And then certainly moving forward, we can kind of just copy and paste and replicate that. So any and all feedback is always really graciously accepted. And just lastly, Tamid, before we close off, are there any outstanding questions at all?
Hey, Pete, nothing on my end. Thank you.
Brilliant. All right. Well, that's always good news. So thank you very much for your help today, Tamid. It's really been much appreciated. And everyone, thank you for coming on today. The call to action now will be to certainly go away, start to have those conversations if you already haven't around internal leadership review and getting those relevant stakeholders involved, and then starting to see if you can put a plan in place as to when you can actually roll out the internal leadership review, because you will absolutely reap the benefits of doing that in terms of being able to just identify where you are within that maturity model, how you can move careers leadership forward within your institution. So thank you very much for joining us today. It's been great to have you along, and hope to see you all again soon. Thanks now. Bye.